Hey everybody, I'm Sean. Welcome to another episode of Angling Spiders. Welcome back everybody. On today's episode, we are going to be unboxing this package that we received from Eyoyo, and today's video is sponsored by Eyoyo because of that. They sent us some underwater camera gear. We're going to get to that unboxing in a minute, but before I do, just a couple of things related to our previous video. So let me get to that first. All right, everybody. So as I was talking about in the previous video, we're still patiently waiting for the ice fishing season here in southern Alberta. As you can probably see beside me, it is relatively nice out right now, and I could actually be out here without a coat right now. No snow, unlike other parts of the province where they've had quite a bit of snow and colder temperatures, and so they're already out ice fishing. We do have some colder temperatures coming, so we will continue to see some of that ice form, but for now we have to wait until there are safe ice conditions. And just a reminder to those of you who are waiting for safe ice conditions, please be careful. Make sure you've got a way to check the ice and that you're using caution out there. Just last week here in southern Alberta, we had a gentleman die. He fell through the ice, and unfortunately he didn't make it, just south of here in the community south of Calgary. So and that was on a trout pond. So just a caution. Again, we hear about these stories all the time, but you got to be careful out there. All right, one other thing related to the previous video. So for those of you that saw the last video, we showed our ice fishing setup and our ice fishing tent. We did get a few comments about our heater. We currently have a Mr. Heater, and it sits on top of our propane tank. We used it all of earlier in the season, and it works fine in the daytime. But one of the things that was correctly pointed out is that that version does not have an automatic shutoff in low oxygen conditions, and that's true. Thank you to all of you. We definitely appreciate our community, and we definitely read those comments and take them to heart. And because safety is paramount, we did go out for Black Friday, and we picked up a new Mr. Big Buddy heater at the recommendation of a number of you out there. And so this version, unlike the one that we have on our propane tank, does have a low oxygen shutoff. So if those carbon monoxide levels are building up, even with the detector in there, this thing's going to shut off. Still puts off carbon monoxide. You still got to be careful, but this is a much safer option. So looking forward to getting out there and using this one. We will continue to use the other one depending on the circumstances, but this one, if we're doing an overnighter, will definitely be something that we're using going forward. So thanks for the suggestions. We really appreciate it. Now let's get on with today's unboxing. Okay, so as I said off the top, here's the package that we received from Eyoyo. They reached out to us and asked if we would be willing to do a review. Just to be clear, even though they're sponsoring this video by sending us this package, we are under no obligation to give it a positive review. In fact, we're under no obligation to do anything other than to use it and hopefully put out a YouTube video. So that's what we're gonna do. What I'm gonna do is show you what comes in here. And in future videos, once we get out onto the ice, we'll obviously show you how it works and our impressions. So first and foremost, I want to be very clear that what they sent us was the entry-level model for the Yoyo underwater camera. That means that it's a lower resolution, so they have a 720p version camera, and they also have a 1080. So this is the 720. Also, this one does not have a recording function, so if you're looking to make footage for YouTube like we are, you cannot record with this one. This is a video only. But that being said, still a good choice if you're just looking out there to get a camera under the water and see the fish. First thing I will mention is that it comes in this nice little carrying case. It does seem relatively sturdy. It's pretty hardcore. I wouldn't want to drop this thing from a high level to see how it's impact rated, but it is nice that you got it all compact in this one package, and that you can just basically take this out and set it on the ice in this container. That makes it a lot easier. So this is your screen holder, and this is what you're going to use when you take it out. So when you first open it up, the first thing you're going to notice is the screen that's inset into the top of the carrying case, and a few other components that I'll talk about in a minute. This is a color screen, and it does pop out if you need it to. So if you just press these two little tabs at the side, that screen will pop out of there. You can apparently use it that way, or also if you needed to do some cleaning. Immediately underneath that screen is this foam pad, and I think this foam pad's pretty important. Basically what that's doing is protecting your screen from the components underneath. Now, When you first get this thing and open it up, it all feels relatively tight and there isn't a lot of pressure on that screen, so it seems to fit pretty well. But one thing I will say is, if I have a concern, is whether or not that some of the components under there would put pressure on the screen at the end of a fishing day. So as you all know, if you're out there fishing for a long day and you're trying to clean up, you're just gonna probably throw some of this stuff in there. If you're not careful and some of that stuff is bulky, it's gonna put additional pressure on this foam mat, and there's the potential when you go to close it that you're gonna crack your screen. So everything in this case basically has to be exactly as laid out, or it's not going to shut properly. So that's one thing that you're just going to have to be really careful about. If I remove this foam mat, you can see that the rest of the components that come in this box. Now again, as a reminder, once again, this is the low-end, low-res version. I think it currently retails for about $200 Canadian. So for those in the US, that's probably closer to $150 US right at the moment. And so it's going to come with the basic stuff in here. So the first thing is you've got your charge cable for your battery. Now, in order to avoid the situation of having to have pressure on your screen, as I mentioned before, I would probably leave some of this stuff at home. Unless you plan on charging your battery while you're out fishing, you can leave this. And my understanding is that, we haven't tested it yet, my understanding is that the battery on this thing will last somewhere between 6 and 8 hours. So we'll actually test that out and give you guys a review of that later in the ice fishing season. But if that's the case, you could leave this charge cable at home and it's not going to be in the way. In addition to that, there's this float that comes with the setup, and in the instructions and in some of the notes that they sent, you can actually put this on as a fishing bobber and attach it to your camera and use your camera as attach a lure to the end of your camera and use your camera like a fishing line. Not something I would ever do, and so I don't see the need for this float. And again, something I would probably leave at home. And if you take those two things out, you've probably removed enough pressure on that screen that you're not going to have to worry about it. Next up, you've got your battery pack. We charged this one up. I plugged it in for about, I would say 6 hours. I don't know exactly how long it takes to completely charge. I wasn't monitoring it on a regular basis, but after 6 to 7 hours, it was fully charged, and the light on the charge cable turns green. In addition to that, you've got your cables, and the cable for the camera comes on this spool, and there's a Velcro on here that allows you to keep it organized. And then you've got your, on the other end of that, you've got your various attachments so that you can plug it into your camera and your battery pack, etc. Lastly, you've got your camera, and it comes with this little steel arm on the end. That's apparently so that you can attach a lure to it, or some bait to attract some fish into your camera. Again, I would never use this for fishing, but it is an option that they say is available to you, so that will not be used. But then you've got the camera itself, and this camera can sit in either horizontal position based on the clips that come with the camera, or you can just have it facing straight down into your hole. I will be using it in the horizontal position, and in order to do that, they send some clips that you can use that attach to these rings on the top of the camera, and then you run the cord through it, and that's what holds the camera stable in a horizontal position. All right, that's everything that comes in the kit, with one exception. I pulled it out at the beginning, and that's this little piece of plastic. This is basically a sunshade. So if you're going to use this unit outside on the ice, outside of an ice tent where you might have some shade, the glare of the sun is probably going to be a challenge in terms of seeing the camera. So they send this little plastic sunshade. It basically just clips onto the side of the camera here while it's sitting in the unit. You just slide it in like that over top, and now you've got a sunshade so that you can see the image on the camera without having to have it in direct sunlight. So that's the last thing that comes in there. All right, the next step for us is to check that this camera is working, put it in some water and make sure that it's working. And but before I get to that, I want to show you one other set of gear directly related to this. Okay everybody, so I just showed you this, but what I didn't show you was this. In addition to the low-res version, we also have the high-res version, which is way cooler because this one's got some differences that I will point out that allow us to film some things a little easier, and also has a better camera. So I will very quickly open this one up and show you guys the differences between the two cases, just so that you have an idea. This one, I think the higher res version is about $100 to $150 more than the lower res version. So there are some cost implications to having the higher res version of this camera. All right, so if you open it up, it looks very similar in terms of what you get in the lower res version. Same basic components. You will see that this one has an HD screen on it. It says HD, and so this is going to be your 1080p screen. Also, you've got a different button on here. You've got the record button, because this one does allow you to record video. And if I pop this one out, the same way you pop it out with these little tabs, I can actually show you that this is the place where you put the SD card in, so that you can record your video. So we are very much looking forward to that feature of this Yoyo camera. The cords on this one, the same. This is a 15-meter cord. It's just a high-res cord. You get the float, you get the charge cable for your battery. The only difference on this one is that the battery is a little bit bigger and looks a little bit different, and it did take a little bit longer to charge. I'm going to say that this one probably took between 10 and 12 hours, or yeah, somewhere around 10 to 12 hours to charge. This one also has a battery indicator on it, so if you press that, you get a little bit of an LED that tells you what your battery charge is at. So that's a handy little feature, so that you know how much of your battery life is left. That's the real differences between the low res and high res versions. Other than that, they work exactly the same. So we are really looking forward to comparing them, and of course, as we get these things out on the ice, we're going to give you guys a direct comparison between the two different versions. We will obviously only have footage from this one, but we can film the screen on the other one, and of course give you our opinions. So really looking forward to that. All right, the next step here in this video is I'm going to attempt to film some footage from both of these underwater. I don't know how this is going to work, and then I'll come back and close it out. All right, everybody, I'll show you my super impressive testing setup here. I've got both cameras sitting there ready on the railing of the deck, and just below that I've got a cooler that I've filled with some tap water, and also a little land shark that some of you may recognize from the last video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the cameras into that water, and we will see what we can see. Now, of course, this is ultra clear water, so it isn't going to represent, you know, the clarity of the water you're going to get out there fishing. Also, the background of the cooler is white, so it's really going to reflect any light. So this is going to be a lot brighter than your normal fishing conditions. But I thought for a test of both cameras, just to make sure they're working, and so that we can see what's going on, this was a good way to test them both out. So let's get to the testing. All right, everybody, so there's the camera hooked up, and you use these little rings, as I said before, to get it into horizontal mode. So by clipping those rings up there and running the cord through it, it holds the camera in a horizontal fashion. Like you can see, the camera is currently on, and you can see the image on the screen here. It looks pretty good right now from where I'm sitting. There is a little bit of glare, so even though it's an overcast day today, I would say that unless you're at the right angle, it is pretty tough to actually see that screen with the glare. I'll hold it up here, and you can see as I'm panning around over to my Mr. Big Buddy over there. It looks okay if you're straight on, but the second you get in an angle, even with the cloud cover, there's a glare. So I would probably put on the Eyoyo sunshade. All right, you guys, so here I am. I've actually taken the screen out of the case. Just for filming purposes, it's a little easier for me to hold this thing so that you guys can see it on the camera. So there's the camera sitting above the cooler right now. I'm just going to drop it now into the water. There we go. Now you should be seeing the cooler. And if I turn this camera now in this cooler, let's see if we can pick up anything in the cooler. And there we go. Hopefully you can see that. We've got the land shark from the last video. I gotta say, I'm actually pretty impressed right now. The clarity is pretty good. Now obviously, again, this is clear water, but from a color perspective, you can see the color, the paint job on that fish pretty well. It's got some red gills there, a gray paint job. So that's at a distance of about 1.5 feet away from that fish. That's about the maximum distance I can get it away in this cooler, because that's the length of the cooler. So pretty good. Overall, that's pretty impressive for a relatively cheap underwater camera. So that's a good test. It's working fine. All right, everybody, so I have now switched over to the HD version, and this is going to be a lot easier because I can actually hit record on this one and record it directly to the SD card in the camera. But just before I do that, I can tell you I'm already seeing a difference in the quality of the camera. It's definitely clear as it's showing up there on the screen. So I'm going to drop this down, and what you will see next is the footage directly from the recorded camera. I've now switched over to the footage directly from the camera. It's recording right now. So what you should be seeing is the camera lowering into the water. And there we go. I've got the camera down into the water, and there's the same positioning on the shark that we had before. No question for sure, this is definitely a higher res camera. The sharpness of that image is definitely coming through at least on the HD screen, and we'll see if hopefully it's coming through on what I'm recording right now. Interestingly enough, as I lowered this one into the water, I could also see the reflection of that fish on the surface of the water. If I turn the camera up a little bit, there's the reflection of that fish on the top of the water, and it's picking up pretty good, and so it gives you the illusion that there's a fish above the fish there, but that's pretty good. This is the same distance away as the last footage, about 1.5 feet, and definitely clear. And if I move it a little bit closer, there it is, about 1 foot away. It looks pretty good. Okay, everybody, that's going to do it for the unboxing and initial review of both the 720 and 1080p versions of that Eyoyo underwater camera. We are really looking forward to getting out there and testing those things in ice fishing season, and of course, once we have some time with them on the ice, we will update you guys with a further review of both those cameras. I will put a link below to both of those products in the description for this video. And just a reminder to everybody that we are Amazon affiliates, so if you go through any of those links and make a purchase, there is the potential that we will get some money if you make a purchase through those links. And as always, we appreciate that. The money goes right back into helping to produce more of these videos. So, all right, we're going to close it there. I hope you guys enjoyed at least this first look at the Yoyo cameras, and thanks again to Yoyo for reaching out to us. We really appreciate it. With that, we're going to close it on this one. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how we're going to position those cameras in our ice fishing holes. So there's a lot of products out there you can get. There's a little electric tripods, but I'm actually going to make a camera positioning system right here. That's going to be the next episode, so you can look forward to that. All right, everybody. We're going to close it out as we always do. If you like the video, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and until next time, good fishing. All right, everybody, always also encourage some conservation of our fisheries. So remember, if you get an opportunity and you don't need the fish, make sure you do a catch and release. Here we go. See you next time.